The norm. And what creates scandal is a lack of morality. When you do not have morals and you behave scandalously, you will constantly have scandal. So some time ago, back in the late 90s, we had Mr. Clinton with his Monica Lewinsky scandal. Of course, we had what they call Blackwater, which was an investigation and a scandal. We got the Russia collusion scandal. We have the other scandal where Stormy Daniels, the porn star, did some sort of work for the president before he became president, and of course he paid her off, said that he didn't, but now we find that he did another scandal. And now we have Omarosa, who is going to bring out a multitude of scandalous statements and behavior by the president and his staff because she was right there in the mix of it all. Now in our lessons, and this is something I thought about the other day, why does the devil keep our people apart from his social equality? Yeah. And that question in the lessons of the nation. And of course the answer, and I can't quote it exactly right now for some reason, that because he does not want us to see how filthy he is and all his affairs. So again,
and it says that we would run him from among us.
Right.
Right.
So those lessons have a bearing on what's going on with Sister Omarosa. Now, of course, and let me just preface my remarks, we're going to deal with this, but I don't for 1 minute perceive that Sister Omarosa is a revolutionary. She is taking an opportunity to take revenge on some people who, for racist reasons and for reasons of being intimidated perhaps by her beauty and articulateness, maybe felt intimidated, so they did the sister wrong, booted her out when she probably was the most qualified of all those numbskulls that are down there. I mean, when you compare her to Scaramucci and how much of a fool he acted as the so-called communication director and how he was there for 5 days and then he was fired. The bottom line of it is that she is attacking what she perceives to be her enemies who did her wrong. She's taking this opportunity to get back at enemies. Now she must have known something because she was taping stuff all during the campaign. And one of the remarks that she made on television was that she had to protect herself and her own interests, and in order to do that. Now, there's one scandal after another in America. All over the place there's scandals and all kinds of corruption. And so, I thought about this topic, Scandalous America, as a topic but underneath the scandal is what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan called an internal rot.
Right.
Okay, a rot or a decay of everything that makes a nation a nation. All of that is in decay. So while Donald Trump is wanting football players to stand for the anthem, everything that makes the nation a nation, that makes the nation of value to its citizens, is being undermined and swept away right while he's talking about stand for the symbol.
Right.
But the symbol is supposed to represent something real. You're not supposed to have symbol without substance. And so I wanted to kind of lay that out, and I know you had some thoughts as we move further into the program, but of course tonight's topic is Scandalous America, and we're going to delve a little deeper than just the opening title. Sister Deborah?
Well, the first thing that I think about when you say about, one scandal after another as of late, you just can't help but to put it in the context of time. America hasn't really changed. You know, it's always been scandal in the White House. If they would have had smartphones during the time of Thomas Jefferson and his antics, I mean, you would have had scandal in the White House in the contemporary. The difference between now and then, I mean, just like with John F. Kennedy, they said they had women running all in and out of the White House. It's just that in the modern times, you have equipment, surveillance equipment, and then you have something called the internet, where whatever goes on can be shot around the world with the click of one button.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want us to think for 1 minute that America hasn't been immoral or even wicked from its inception. So we need to keep that in mind as we are laying out this topic tonight, that is not that America somehow is getting, I mean, it is getting worse, because now the things that people would do behind their doors, not only is it, you know, shown on the nightly news every night, but as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, the things that we're doing, you know, and the way that we're behaving would make even an animal shame because of the behavior. But these are things that have been going on all along. Now it's just being shown in our living rooms every day. And the Master Fard Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teacher, said in the 1930s, before the advent of television sets, he said that one day that we would be entertaining the devil in our living room. So literally, when we're looking at the television screen, you know, save a few shows like The Community Defender, what we're doing is that we're entertaining Satan's mind right in our living room, and we set our babies right down in front of the television set to be programmed, because that's what it's called, television programming, to be programmed by Satan himself. And another thing that tells you about the moral decline of a country, or the decline of a country, is the education system. And now the education system of America is in free fall. It's literally in free fall. They were on Common Core a couple of years ago. Now they're changing, you know, to other types of educational paradigms. But what they're trying to do is reform something that's broken. You can't reform something that is broken. It has to be completely eradicated, and something new has to be put in its place.
Absolutely. And you know, when you look at the current final call, and the title of it is The Fire This Time. Mm-hmm. And it, you know, of course, it deals with the divine judgment of God and all of the fires that are going on in California.
And you know what? When I looked at the final call, I read through it, and in my mind, I saw Fire Next Time, James Baldwin's book.
Right.
Yes.
It's the fire this time.
Fire this time.
Because what James Baldwin wrote about yesteryear is what we're dealing with this year.
That's right.
Now, the title of the article by Minister Farrakhan in the final call is, "Our sentence in America is up. God has come for the black man and woman."
Come on.
Now, you know, we've done some time. You know, we've done that 400-year sentence that has been prophesied in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter.
That's right.
We have literally served out that time, and now a grace period is given, so that as the slaves are disconnected from the former slave masters and separated, they have to be awakened to the knowledge of themselves. Not only do we as black people have to be awakened to the knowledge that we are the original people of the earth. That's very important for us to know, that we are the first people to eat on plates, the first people to have wheels, the first people to have knives and forks, the first people to stand before a clergy and do something called a wedding ceremony. The first people to have libraries where we stored our wisdom in a central location. The first people to have a banking system where you could write off a piece of paper called a check, take that piece of paper and then draw from a central location where the money would be. So the modern banking system as we know it today came from original people, black people. So when you look at these things, we have to understand that we are the original. We are the first. And when you look at the idea, and this is one of the things that they say, is that Isaac Newton discovered gravity because an apple fell on his head. All these stupid things. It's gravity. I mean, really? Some of the stupid stuff that they say, we always knew that if you jumped out of a tree or off a building, you would fall.
Oh, he has, Newton's laws.
And keep in mind, they also talk about him inventing calculus. How can he invent something where the pyramids that are there in Egypt and in Central and South America, pyramids, those pyramids which are reflective of an original mind, those pyramids take to make a higher level of mathematics to have been able to conceive and align than the calculus, and so a higher level of mathematics than what Isaac Newton is said to have invented must have already existed in order for you to build something that takes that level of mathematics. We live in a mathematical universe. We're on a mathematically precise planet. Math is in and a part of everything, even ourselves.
And that's one of the things that, they try to discount. We actually buried a lot of our wisdom and knowledge. And so this Johnny-come-lately man on the planet, when he discovers what we already had, he puts his name on it. But the people that are credited with, educational systems and the philosophers and whatnot of their time, they went and studied in what they call Alexandria, Egypt. So, a lot of what they say that they got, actually they went and studied in the hallowed halls of the original man's educational institutions. And then what they did, after we educated them, they turned around and burned down our libraries. And then, of course, they said that they were the ones who originated this knowledge.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read something from, not this week, but the previous week of the final call as we kind of delve into it. Because we're going to deal with also the other scandal, which is the sexual abuse Catholic Church scandal in just a second. And that's another scandal that is another example of the internal rot in America. And that internal rot and decay is going to help to cause the collapse of America. And America's fall right now cannot be checked. So those who stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, you're pledging allegiance to something very temporary. Because America will not exist in the very near future. All of the signs of the destruction of this empire are there. We don't have to, as a people, fall with America. We can choose to hold on to, as we used to say in church, God's unchanging hand. And if we hold to his hand, then we will not fall because God is the protector. God is the savior.
Let me just say this. That I was having a conversation with Gabrielle, and I made the analogy that America is like the Titanic, and that it hit a black iceberg called Farrakhan in the exact right place in order for this ship to take on water and begin to start sinking. By nature, if anything is within a 1 mile radius of a sinking ship, it will actually be pulled into that vacuum that is created by the ship going down with the ship. So, America is a sinking ship. And so we have to come out of her.
And now I'm going to say this. Those boats that travel, they are actually told when they lower them in the water to row away from the ship that is sinking so that the effect of the sinking of the big vessel doesn't draw the smaller vessels down with it. So some distance has to be gotten between you and the thing that's sinking. And when you look at at America, first of all, there needs to be a significant distance in the way that we think as a people and the predominant thought or attitude of America. When you think about a black man who may be a soldier, maybe he's in Afghanistan, maybe he's in Iraq, maybe he has family right here in Louisiana, and they're hoping he makes it home safe. But the question becomes, that black soldier, whether they be male or female, has their life on the line for a nation wherein a black man was beat to death and his family received $61,000. But a dog owned by a white family, the sheriff settled for $75,000 for a dog, yet so you're looking at a $14,000 difference. And it's interesting that the lessons, we have how many? How many questions in lesson 1? 14. But I'm going to say this. That difference and that reality that you're fighting for a nation that has policies that are against you and your people. Now, black people have been patient with America. We have not set up and really formed militias, but white folks have formed militias to protect themselves from the government. But we, the black people, who are attacked more by the government, are always trying to work things out with the government, even though the government is planning the very death of our youth and the very death of us as a people. America is planning death and destruction for black folks. That's the plan. Now you can act like that's not the plan. You can say, well, we are the world, we are the children, we are one America. You can, I mean, Barack Obama gave a wonderful speech when he said there is not a red state America, there's not a blue state America. Now, yeah, that sounded good, but it was absolutely false. And if he didn't know it at that time, which I believe he did, he found out when he became president and found out the different rules that applied to him. Could you imagine if Barack Obama had hired a porn star to have sex with him and had paid her off $100,000 and all that came out in the news? Can you imagine what the Republicans, what the so-called focus on the family, what the evangelicals would be saying about Barack Obama? But these so-called moralistic evangelicals, their mouths are absolutely shut. And not only are they not saying anything against this whoremonger and stupid person named Donald Trump, but they are in lockstep with the very activity that they always preach against.
But that just goes to show that they are actually, involved in the very thing. That's why they can't condemn it. You know what I'm saying?
But you know what? That never stopped them before. If you think about it, they have condemned terrorism even while they are themselves terrorists.
I agree.
Right.
But that's the only way that you can justify that, is that really what you can't condemn that which you really are. And then, like you said, you could if it's somebody else, but the reality of it is like the guy that called in the last time. He was saying that he didn't care about how many prostitutes or porn stars that Donald Trump slept with. And all he wanted to know was about if Hillary Clinton had spoke, what was her involvement with the Russia scandal. And so, the whole concept of them being upset at his behavior, even though they're supposed to be, conservative, socially conservative, they seem to have no problem with the president that talks about grabbing women in their private areas and,
They voted for him and they supported it. They do not support morality. They only have this facade of morality. And that's why the Bible says in the book of Daniel that an image was set up. It wasn't even anything real. It was just the image that was supposed to represent something real. It was a deceptive image that everybody was supposed to bow down to.
That's right.
But when you think about the fact that you had a white quarterback that kneeled down during the anthem to protest abortion, okay? And then you had white Jehovah's Witnesses who played professional baseball that didn't even come out of the dugout when the national anthem was played, because the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't roll like that. Nobody ever, they were never called SOBs. Tim Tebow was never called, and I believe he's the one that kneeled to protest abortion. And keep in mind, when they talk about abortion, they don't want white women to have abortions. Because one of the things we got to understand is that this year, there are 60,000 less white people in America than there were last year. Because white people are dying at a faster rate than they are being born, not only in America, but globally. So there's a plan with these vaccinations and other things to slow down the population growth of black people and Latinos, and that is the reason for this idea of border enforcement, because you're trying to maintain a predominantly white population and electorate and therefore control. So, you know, America is going to continue to be scandalous because at the root of America is wickedness and the total absence of morality. When you think about the fact that everybody knows that a president lied to start a war that cost the United States $2 trillion, of which they had to borrow, and that it was based on oil. And everybody knows that Dick Cheney met with the executives of oil companies and told them which part of Iraq that they would have. When they attempted to verify it through the Freedom of Information Act, the Bush administration sued, citing executive privilege, and the court sided with the Bush administration but they never denied that they met with executives and had carved up Iraq, not for weapons of mass destruction, but for oil and the rights of oil in another sovereign nation. When you do that kind of wickedness based on lies, and you kill 1.3 million Iraqis, 5,000 American soldiers died for a lie, and there's not an uproar by the so-called moral majority in America, that means that you really have an immoral majority, and the majority of the people are immoral. And that's why in the Bible it says that every imagination of them was to do evil. And we are living in that time right now. That is why it's one scandal after another. And the beautiful thing that I'm going to point out, and again, you know I don't agree with everything that Barack Obama did, but one thing I do say is that Barack Obama at least came to office with good intentions. Bush came to office with the intention to go to war. Reagan came to office with the intention to kill people and go to war and to subject the black population. And Barack Obama is one of the few presidents that at least came to office with actual good intentions. And that's what sets Barack Obama apart. And because he was careful, he did keep a relatively scandal-free administration, really scandal-free. You didn't have all of the scandals that are going on with Trump. Lets you know that the nature of the people, the very nature in which they were made or created, is a different nature. And keep in mind, a lot of the differences of opinion are not always based on different experiences. People say, well, they have different experiences with police, and that's why they feel differently about the police. And so we all have different experiences. No, we have different natures. And if lying, thievery, and murder is the nature of a man, then he doesn't mind if police lie on the witness stand, lie on defendants, if they steal dope and dope money, if they prostitute, and if they murder innocent unarmed people. When lying, thievery, and murder are at the root of you and your thinking, lying, thievery, and murder doesn't bother you. And that's why the majority population is not even bothered by the fact that Bush started a war based on a lie, wasted $3 trillion already in a war that they still are fighting right now, and people are still dying every day. and 1.3 million Iraqi dead bodies on a lie. The fact that everybody's not in an uproar says that the nature is something wrong with the nature of the people, that they would roll with something like this and not have anything credible to say about it, or believe that what they're doing is honorable. So if you go to Iraq and think, when you're fighting for something that is a lie, that is not honorable. There's no way to mince words. That is not honorable. If you are fighting for something that is not truth itself, because I come from the God of truth, I come from the God of justice. I don't come from the God of oil thievery. I don't come from the God of lies. So my life has to be, if my blood is spilled, it has to be spilled based on truth, not a lie that George Bush told, or a lie that maybe Barack Obama would tell, or a lie that Donald Trump would tell. It has to be utilized for truth, because that's the God I come from. That's the God you come from. Therefore, human life must only be spilled into pursuit of truth and justice, because that is who God is. Bottom line. So the idea, and we're going to continue to have those scandals. But Sister Deborah, you had something?
No,
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and deal with this latest scandal.
Okay.
In the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, brothers and sisters, we're not on this program to attack anybody because of their religious label. Your religious label is your religious label. And you, my brother, you, my sister, no matter what you call yourself, at the root of it, we all are born to submit to God. That's what you can call it Catholicism, you can call it being a Baptist, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. I call it Islam, Muslim, but you can call it whatever you want to call it. But now there's a problem in this country where you have all of these priests, and it's a damn shame. I should say darn shame. But it's a darn shame that the church that is supposed to preach Christ is the largest child sex ring in the world. It's a global child sex ring with crosses on it.
Well,
and unfortunately, I don't know if some of it is parents have to watch, but this kind of stuff should not be going on with God's name being mentioned over it, where precious children are being abused and thousands of victims. This thing that came out of Boston was major.
Years ago in my, it was a music class,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember saying it on the show, that my instructor said that the Catholic Church used to have something called castratis. You know, you had the boys, they would have all boys choirs. And the castratis were the boys that before they reached the age of puberty, they would actually take the boys and put them in warm baths. And then they would let their testicles descend a little bit, tie the testicles off, and then they would castrate them so that they can sing in the choir and maintain the high-pitched voice. And of course, what happens when you take a young man and you castrate him? You know, you take his testosterone away from him. So all of these, you don't remember me saying that? So they're they're called castratis. Mm-hmm. And so, well, what happens? These same young men join the priesthood, and because their nature has been altered, or maybe not, because they are Caucasian. But the point is that when you do certain things to them, so then they start leaning towards one another, and it's just a known fact that many of the Catholic priests are homosexuals. And so for the fact that they have been oriented towards having sex with, of course, you know, the same sex, and even the abuse of the children, that all is the fabric of the Catholic Church. These are things that you can go back in your history books and you can see that at no limit of time that this is the history of the Catholic Church. And that's sick. So a child can sing in a choir, you castrate them?
Yeah, just for me. Now that kind of thing is very, and of course it's unnatural to ask a man to live his life without a woman. Having a woman and a family is the natural order of life, and it's natural for men and women to incline to each other. Of course, we know that homosexuality is being marketed like beverages are marketed, it's being marketed like potato chips are marketed, so that people buy
But see,
into
that's to get the mainstream into
Mhm.
it, but it has been prevalent in the Catholic Church for centuries.
it. Right. That's dumb. Go ahead, caller. Is the caller on? Go ahead, caller. You're on the air with the community defender.
Yes, sir. I've been studying this case for 10 years, and there's a Catholic priest named Kevin Everett. He escaped from the Vatican. He's a whistleblower.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a website. They tried to kill him. It's called the International Tribunal Common Courts of Belgium. It's the ITCCS. You want to write that down? ITCCS.org. There's a web page. You can scroll down, look at the arrest documents for Pope Francis, Pope Ratzinger, and a bunch of other people. And they tried to arrest Pope Francis last month, the SWAT team, and they were beaten off by his men. They have a satanic child sacrifice ring called the Ninth Circle. And they've been in existence in the Vatican, hidden since 1773. They're still active. Interpol and all these other government agencies are trying to get into that ring. And I've informed a lot of people in the Catholic orphanages. They have orphanages. They can't find thousands of children. They're listed as not even dead. They can't find. They're finding mass graves in Canada, France, Belgium of children. And the Catholic Church, they're not going to say anything, but Pope Francis is a suspect, and this priest is trying to blow the whistle. The major news media wouldn't carry it, but it's coming out. You want to check that website, and you'll see it's all right there. Kevin Everett sends me emails, and he wants Francis gone. So it's bigger of a sting than I even realized, but I believe it, and I've seen all of it. And the good Lord tells me things like He tells you what's truth and what isn't. So it's a big satanic. They do it to get power. And so that's a sad shame. You know, if that comes out, and people, they're gonna leave that issue. They're gonna leave for Pope Francis is not a normal human being.
Thank you, caller. Definitely appreciate that. That was pretty interesting and you know, perhaps insightful. The thing I would say, as you said, it's been a problem for centuries. And the idea, and of course, the Pope before the present one had to resign because he was implicated reportedly in the cover-up, and so he ended up having to leave after only serving a few months as Pope because of his involvement in the cover-up and scandal. So you have all of this stuff going on that I don't know if the laity is asleep to it or what is going on in that church, but understand that it's one thing to have isolated incidents. It's another thing to have a global phenomenon where you have thousands and tens of thousands of victims and really thousands of priests involved in this thing. So it's really something that, and it represents, as we've said before, an internal morality rot that's going on all over, not just in the church, but everywhere in America. Go ahead, caller. You're on there with the community defender.
Yes, good evening, brother. Sister Deborah and brother Daryl.
Good evening.
Hey, look here, you guys are speaking truth to power. You know, united we stand, divided we fall. And if we're going to divide ourselves from the truth, shame on us, because you guys are speaking very much powerful truth. You know, in God we trust. What God are we trusting in? You know, are we trusting in Satan God or the God that we're supposed to be believing in, which is the truth, the light, and the way? You know, you guys are talking about the sex ring in the Catholic Church. You know, the sex ring in the Catholic Church is not the dilemma. You got to look at the slavery that came through the Catholic Church or through the Catholic religion. You know, and people is not understanding that, you know. Regardless what they doing, it seems like people is still appraising the religion. You know, that's just like Donald Trump. Look at all the wrong done that Donald Trump is doing right now. And it seems like people is still praising him, talking about we got to give him a chance to do what he needs to do to keep messing up the country that we so much love. The people in our country we love, and it seems like they don't have no influence about the people that they're supposed to be serving in our country. You know, so again, I thank you guys for bringing the truth and the light and the way. If we don't listen to the truth, shame on us, you know. And we got the election getting ready to come up. We better make sure that we are registered to vote. No, we may not like the process, but the process is what's set in place. Let's be a part of the process and change the situation for us. Because if we don't change it ourselves, ain't nobody gonna change it. Thank you guys. Y'all have a very blessed evening and keep bringing truth to the light.
Thank you, sir. We definitely appreciate the vote of confidence that you've given us. I wanted to read something from the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. I'm going to try to read it, but I want everybody to listen to it. He says, not only are the nations angry, but God is angry. He is angry at what he is looking at. Debauchery and filth paraded as morality. If you speak against it, you are considered something ugly. If a pastor speaks against homosexuality, he is called homophobic. If he speaks against lesbianism, he is not up to speed. He is living in old times. If we take a moral stand against adultery and fornication, we are out of touch with reality. If we criticize our government for its corruption, we are called un-American. If we criticize the behavior of white people in their injustice towards blacks, and if we as black people want to come together to find some solace and peace among ourselves, we are called racist in reverse. So we better not speak the truth, because if you speak the truth, somebody is going to get hurt. But truth is your best friend, because truth will give us a mirror to allow us to see ourselves and how far off we are from the standard of God. Somebody has to tell the truth. Somebody has to be willing to pay the price of truth. Truth is more important than our little positions. Truth is more important than being mayor or police chief or senator or cardinal or pope or imam or the president of the United States. Truth is bigger than all of us. The Holy Quran teaches us that Allah created the heavens and the earth with truth. The universe is sustained with truth. There is no position of power that can be sustained over any long period of time based on falsehood and injustice.
That's right.
And that is why the enemy knows that a day of reckoning. Now the biggest scandal, really, is how black folks are treated in America. All those other scandals combined, the David Vitter with prostitutes, this one and that one, Jimmy Swaggart, all of that. But the biggest scandal is what has been done to the black man in America ever since 1555. And one of the things I neglected to say earlier was that we are chosen by God. But we are not chosen by a spook or spirit God. We are chosen by the true and living God that is a real live human being. We are chosen by the God that has power over all things. We are chosen by the God whose wisdom is matchless, and he knows best where to place his message. We as black people are chosen by God to come up out of the filth and indecency that we have learned from our handlers. We're chosen to come up out of that. Stop smoking, stop drinking. Stop spending your money on frivolity. Buy a book. Buy you a $20 book instead of some $200 Jordans. Now that's just being real. And buy you something, and it's just me talking. I have what they call a First Amendment right to speak. Buy something that is going to make you grow as a person. Something that gives you knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And if you are a parent and you say to yourself, I don't like to read, get that out of your mind. Whether you like it or not, you better read, because the more wisdom you have within you, the more you can pass on to your children. If your head is empty and you don't have any wisdom, any facts, any historical context in your mind, what in the world can you pass on to your children that they can then confront the challenges that they're going to face? Part of being a good parent is being a seeker of knowledge and an applier of knowledge. Okay? We have got to get this family back together. And how in the world can Black Lives Matter and black businesses don't? You got to patronize a black business. Everybody is talking about the vote. But once politicians are in office, they are often manipulated. We put Barack Obama in. The next thing you know, Barack Obama is bombing Somalia, a black country, bombing Libya, a mostly black country. We didn't elect him for that. To kill Gaddafi, the man that supported the African National Congress, that supported Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement. We didn't need Barack Obama to get involved in that. Yet he was manipulated after we voted for him. So I'm just putting it out there that voting is not the only thing, but patronizing a black business is actually, sorry about that caller, go ahead and call back. Patronizing a black business is what you have to do to strengthen and fortify your community, and being committed to your family, being committed to your marriage, being committed to raising your children the proper way. That right there is where it's at. Okay, whether you vote or not, your real ballot is the dollars that are in your pocket. Wherever you spend them is what you're voting for. So if some of us voted for Seagram's gin. Some of us voted for cigarettes. Some of us voted for crack, marijuana. Some of us voted for opioids. Whatever you spend your ballot on, which is your dollar, that's what you voted for. And there are people who don't vote, who just spend money on candidates and they get all their policies passed and didn't even vote. It was found out when Cheney was running for vice president, he hadn't voted for years because he was controlling it behind the scenes, didn't worry about voting. Go ahead, caller, you on there with the community defender.
Yes, fantastic program. I just wanted to say the topic couldn't be more on point than anything. And hello to you, my beautiful sister Queen, Sister Deborah. With the topic of scandalous America, let's look right under here, right about 24 miles from Lafayette, right there in Liberia. Sugartown, the Discovery Channel done a documentary on Sugartown featuring that low-life dog, Louis Apple as the sheriff. Louis Apple is the reason that Justice Ortiz and his partner killed Little Victor White III. But the taxpayer citizen, if we're going to just talk about money, we pay over $23,000 a month every month for the last 10 years on all of the lawsuits that the taxpayers in Liberia had to pay under the offices of Sheriff Louis Apple. That is ridiculous. That is the top of the core when it comes down to white and the city council. And the city council want to go in and talk bad about the documentary Sugartown, but won't address these ridiculous lawsuits and all of the different type of murders and torture that we have in our Liberia Parish jail. And we need to keep that up with Scandalous America right there with Scandalous in Liberia.
That's right, and of course, I guess that's why in the opening moments of our program, we said local, state, federal, because the scandal is layered. It's so much of it. It's almost like doo-doo in a sewer. that's just how deep the scandal is. It's deeper than doo-doo down there in the sewer, and it's even more funky and stinky than a lot of times what's down there in that sewer. So my thing is that, you know, all of that is due to a lack of spirituality and morality. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan wrote a book called The Torchlight for America over 20 years ago. And he said that inordinate self-interest and greed were the thing that is at the root of it. All of your jobs going to China is because American executives decide to export the jobs overseas. They're the ones that betrayed you. And then the Republican Party said, no, it's the black folks that's the problem. It's the Latinos that are coming across the border. No, it's the decisions that mostly white people, who are the executives of these 500, Fortune 500 companies, they made the decisions to buy from the Chinese, to set up factories over there to employ Chinese over Americans. And don't forget, when Trump was building something, he went with the cheaper Chinese steel in what he was building. That came out in the election. When he had a choice between the American worker and the Chinese worker, he chose the Chinese worker because it was better for him. He wasn't a patriot. So when he talks about make sure you stand and everybody's an SOB who doesn't stand for the national anthem, he didn't stand for the American worker. He chose his own pockets over the interests of American people in his business dealing. He's never been loyal to America in his life. He's only loyal to Trump. And those are, and Omarosa, they are more afraid of Omarosa than they are of Robert Mueller, because she was listening to him in their private discussions. And I'm going to say this, during the COINTELPRO times, white government officials take Martin Luther King, take Elijah Muhammad, take Malcolm X, take Medgar Evers, take Andrew Young. We've always been taken. They bug our phones. That's the reason that some of us went to prison, because somebody in the government taped us. But with this sister Omarosa is turning the tables on, because now you have a black person taping white folks in the government, which is usually the other way around. And that's what has them scared, because it gives them a little taste of the medicine that we've been dealing with for years and years. We've been dealing with this medicine for years and years. Not medicine, but we've been dealing with this wickedness for years. So now a black person is taping white folks in government, and now they're trying to sue to keep that book from coming out, because they don't want to be exposed. And there's a verse in the Holy Quran which says, mix not the truth up with falsehood, nor hide the truth while you know. And so I'm very glad. I know she's not doing it for revolutionary purposes, but what she's doing has the potential to have a revolutionary effect as it continues to expose the internal moral and ethical rot that is at the core of this nation. This nation has never been freedom-loving, never been about God. It has never been about righteousness from its inception. It was set up by a bunch of rich slave owners, not the common man, but it was set up by rich folks for the purpose of rich folks. And America to this very day serves the interests of the wealthy, because that's what it was set up way back then to do. Sister Deborah?
Yes, sir. Well, there are a couple of points that I want to touch on, and one of them at the end you really did touch on. That actually I had it written down in regards to the brother who just called in, and the whole reason why we're going back historically. The majority of white people were not slave owners during the time of slavery. However, what happened is that as a result, people tolerated that institution called slavery for the simple fact that they wanted to be slave owners, as it is with Donald Trump. He had he was featured on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, The Apprentice, and he put out an image as an icon where the average white person wanted to live that lifestyle. So of course, they allow him and they can tolerate him being the way that he is, because he's already set up an image for himself that they would like to one day have, or they would like to live that type of lifestyle. And then the last thing as we begin to close out, you mentioned the First Amendment rights. We are now coming to a time where the First Amendment is being repealed, where you have the freedom of speech. You have Alex Jones, you have net neutrality, you have all of these different things that are now coming into play where voices like the community defender can be, they can now start to, attack and even shut down shows and networks that people begin to create to get the truth out of there. So, we want everybody, of course, to be watchful because, we're coming up on a time where they're trying to shut out all the truth that is coming. So, we just really want to be watchful as we begin to close out. We would like to thank you all for joining us this week. And we just really are grateful for the great audience that we have. And so,
there's a conscious community in Lafayette that is unique, really in southern cities or towns. And so we are definitely grateful for the conscientious and conscious black population that is in Lafayette. You'd be surprised at the intellect, or you really shouldn't be surprised. But there's a great deal of black thought and intellect here in this area, this whole area, this 5-parish area that we broadcast to. So we're definitely grateful, and we've tried to be responsible with the voice that God has given us to be able to speak truth to power. With that voice, we've tried to do our best to be responsible and to disseminate the truth as we understand it. And of course, we are ardent supporters of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and great supporters of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his message. And so we just stand on that and stand on the Holy Quran and what we've been taught of faith by God through his messages. And so, having said that, we want to thank everybody for viewing, and we look forward to seeing you again another week. Assalamu alaikum.